He warned her before he died. And now the truth is erupting in a courtroom. Sheila E. just exposed Prince's chilling final words about Diddy, and what she revealed could shake the entire music industry to its core. Before we dive into this story, drop a comment below where are you watching from and the time you are watching this video. Let's light up this comment section. And hey, if you love celebrity gossip, you're in the right place. Tap that subscribe button right now. Hit the notification bell so you never miss when we drop the next chapter in these powerful, untold stories. What followed was not mere tabloid fodder, but a bombshell moment. An emotional, haunting recollection that blurred the line between conspiracy and reality. Sheila E., the legendary percussionist best known for her close bond with Prince, took the stand in what would become a pivotal turning point in the federal trial against Sean Diddy Combs. As she walked to the witness stand, the room fell into a hush. No one expected her to speak, let alone unveil the secrets she carried. But when Sheila E. began her testimony, it became immediately clear. She wasn't just there to honor a subpoena. She was there to fulfill a promise to a man whose voice had been silenced, yet whose warnings still echoed. Sheila revealed that Prince, shortly before his sudden death in 2016, had shared with her troubling suspicions about the inner workings of the music industry. According to her, Prince feared not just for his artistic freedom, but for his very life. He believed he was being watched, manipulated, and ultimately targeted for elimination due to what he had seen and what he intended to expose. Prince's words, as relayed by Sheila, were chilling. It's not just about owning your masters, it's about who owns you. He believed the industry had evolved into a sinister network of control, exploitation, and manipulation. In private conversations, sometimes late at night, he spoke of secret deals, high-powered elites, and a culture of coercion hidden behind the glitz and glamour. In one especially vivid memory, Sheila recounted a phone call with Prince where he told her there were people playing God at the top levels of the industry. Individuals who could make or break careers, silence dissenters, and cover their tracks with contracts and cash. The artist who once changed his name to a symbol was now trying to warn others that fame came with a price few could comprehend. And among the names Prince allegedly repeated with growing concern, Sean Diddy Combs. Not out of jealousy or rivalry, Sheila emphasized, but because of what Prince claimed he had personally witnessed. He spoke of Diddy not as a peer, but as someone who had access to rooms, parties, and deals that went far beyond music. Places where, according to Prince, things happen that you can't unsee. Prince warned Sheila never to attend certain parties, especially those hosted or attended by Diddy. These weren't regular industry mixers or harmless after-parties, he said. They were rituals disguised as celebrations. Prince believed these events served a darker purpose: to trap artists, collect compromising material, and force compliance through fear and blackmail. At the time, Sheila admitted she wasn't sure what to believe. But after seeing Prince visibly shaken following a trip to Los Angeles, where he refused to eat or sleep, repeatedly muttering, "They know, I know, and they know I know," she started to fear that his paranoia was rooted in something real. As her voice trembled on the stand, Sheila told the court, "What Prince shared with me wasn't just gossip. It was a warning, a cry for help, and maybe even a farewell." Sheila E. took a deep breath before recounting a story that left the courtroom stunned into silence. A night that Prince never spoke of publicly, but that haunted him for years afterward. It began, she explained, with a seemingly ordinary request. Around 2006, Sean Diddy Combs asked to host an exclusive industry party. Not at a club or rented mansion, but at Paisley Park, Prince's sacred creative sanctuary. Prince initially declined, wary of what such a gathering could bring into his space. But according to Sheila, he was eventually pressured into agreement by mutual industry associates, people too powerful to ignore. It was supposed to be professional, Sheila told the jury. A networking event, nothing more. But it was anything but. From the start, the event felt off. Sheila described how the evening began like many high-profile gatherings: red carpets, designer gowns, flashing cameras, and champagne toasts. But once the media left and the real guests arrived, a palpable shift took place. Something darker emerged. Security became unusually strict. Sheila said the staff received explicit orders: No phones, no personal security escorts, and no independent photographers. That's when Prince looked at her and said the words that chilled her to this day: "This isn't my party anymore." Inside Paisley Park, an eerie energy took over. Sheila described the scene, a strange mix of suggestive performances, open substance use, and an overwhelming feeling of being watched. The space, once a haven of creativity and spiritual energy, had been transformed into something unrecognizable. Boundaries just didn't exist anymore, she said. People did things they wouldn't normally do, like they were under a spell. But it wasn't just what was happening in plain sight that alarmed her. Sheila said a section of the estate had been sealed off, closed to most guests, guarded by security. Only a small circle of individuals, including Diddy, were allowed inside. When Sheila asked Prince what was going on behind that door, he reportedly looked at her with hollow eyes and said, "That's where the real party is." She didn't go in. She couldn't. Something in Prince's voice made her stop cold. The next morning, she found him sitting alone, no music playing. No food on his plate, just silence. Prince looked at her and said, "That was the last time I let him into my home." Something dark came in with him. From that day forward, Sheila explained, Prince became increasingly cautious, paranoid even. He no longer trusted those he once considered colleagues. He became convinced that certain parties in the industry weren't about pleasure or celebration. They were about control. He told me, Sheila testified, "They don't just want your hits. They want your silence, and if they can't buy it, they'll bury you." She recalled his fears about non-disclosure agreements, tools used not to protect privacy but to muzzle victims. Prince, she said, had become obsessed with how artists were being groomed, compromised, and filmed at these secret events. According to him, it was all part of a massive network of surveillance and leverage. "They film everything," she quoted him. "That's how they get you." In his view, this system wasn't isolated. It stretched from the basements of luxury homes to the boardrooms of major labels. And at the center of it all, Prince allegedly saw one man as a key enforcer, Diddy. He wasn't just participating, Sheila said. He was curating, controlling. He was one of the gatekeepers. Prince reportedly began to hear stories from artists tied to bad boy entertainment, how their careers had mysteriously vanished after refusing certain offers, how they were blackballed if they tried to speak out. Some had spiraled. Others had disappeared. But what disturbed Prince most wasn't just the power dynamic, it was the footage. He believed that compromising recordings from these parties were being archived, traded, and used as leverage to keep celebrities compliant. Not just stars, but executives, producers, and newcomers alike. "This isn't just dirt," Prince allegedly told Sheila. "This is currency. They own you with it." The courtroom sat in stunned silence. As the gravity of her words sank in, Sheila explained that Prince had begun to prepare for a full-scale legal battle, not just with his label, Warner Brothers, but with the entire system. He believed Warner was connected to both his own contractual exploitation and Diddy's rapid rise. "He told me they were all connected," she said. "The same people who punished him for wanting to own his music were the ones helping Diddy build his empire." And in Prince's eyes, the difference between them was simple. Diddy played the game, Prince refused. As she concluded this portion of her testimony, Sheila delivered one of the most haunting lines yet, words Prince had allegedly said to her in the final months of his life. "When I go, don't let it be in vain. Protect the truth, even if it's ugly." The courtroom was already tense from Sheila E's earlier revelations, but what she shared next would take the proceedings into uncharted emotional territory. Her voice softened, almost trembling, as she recounted her final conversation with Prince, a moment she would never forget, not because of what he said, but how he said it. "It was past 2 a.m., she began, pausing as if reliving it in real time. "He never called that late." Sheila E testified that in the days leading up to his death, Prince had become more distant, yet somehow more urgent, like a man walking toward a clock he knew was about to run out. That night, when her phone rang and his name lit up the screen, she felt something was wrong before she even answered. He sounded afraid, not of death. He'd never feared death, but that night he was afraid of people. On the call, Prince spoke in veiled language, but the fear beneath his words was unmistakable. "They're watching me," he told her. "They want me quiet." He didn't specify who they were, but Sheila already knew. The system, the powerful network he'd warned her about for years. The music industry's secret keepers. The ones with footage, with influence, with the means to silence even the loudest legends. Sheila said Prince confided in her that he was preparing to go public, not in a cryptic Instagram post or an abstract song lyric, but with testimony. He had been in contact with people about appearing in a federal case. The courtroom shifted at those words. Even the stenographer paused for half a beat. When asked by prosecutors to clarify, Sheila said Prince had planned to testify, though he never specified exactly what the case was about. But he did leave clues. He said, "These parties, these artists, the tapes, they're not rumors. I've seen them." It was a chilling statement, one that instantly echoed the heart of the current trial. Prince, years before any of this made headlines, had allegedly seen the very evidence now being presented against Diddy. Evidence involving coercive parties, surveillance, and exploitation. Sheila shared that Prince had become particularly disillusioned by the betrayal of those he once trusted. He said he went to a gathering and realized that half the people in the room weren't there to collaborate on music. They were there to collect secrets. Then came the line that took the air out of the courtroom. "If I go down, it'll be because I tried to save someone who didn't want saving." At the time, Sheila admitted she thought he was referring to another artist, someone younger, maybe trapped in the same machine he had spent decades fighting. But now, in light of what had come out in this trial, she believed Prince was talking about Diddy. She paused, clearly emotional, before delivering the final words Prince ever spoke to her. "Don't let them twist my legacy, and if something happens, remember this call. Say it loud. If I can't." Sheila said she tried calling him back the next day. No answer. A few days later, the world learned Prince was dead. The courtroom sat silent, some jurors visibly shaken. One wiped away a tear. "I didn't want to believe it," Sheila said, her voice cracking. "But now that I've seen the stories, the lawsuits, the victims coming forward, I think Prince was trying to warn the world, and they cut him off before he could." Her testimony continued to escalate as prosecutors drew direct connections between Prince's private warnings and the public allegations now unfolding in real time. Sheila said everything that Cassie, the central witness in the Diddy trial, had described, Prince had warned her about years ago. "Every single detail," she said, "Prince told me was happening. The tapes, the NDAs, the freak-off parties, the silence bought with money and fear." She testified that Prince had once described Diddy as not a producer or peer, but a handler, someone who studied artists, learned their weaknesses, and used them as leverage. He didn't just want to control music, she said. He wanted to control people. Prince, she explained, had begun to notice a pattern among former bad boy artists. They didn't just fall off the charts, they disappeared, some emotionally, some financially, some spiritually. He believed they were being punished for not playing along. She recalled him naming artists like Mace, Total, Day 26, not as mismanaged stars but as examples of what happens when someone tries to break free. "That wasn't poor marketing," she quoted Prince. "That was payback." Then came one of the most damning links in her testimony, Prince's theory about the deal between Warner Brothers and Bad Boy Records. He allegedly believed it was a toxic partnership that allowed abuse and exploitation to continue unchecked. "He told me," Sheila said, "that the same label that tried to own his voice was bankrolling Diddy's rise. And that made perfect sense to him. They fund the machine," he said. "I escaped, but others never will." When prosecutors asked why Prince never made this all public, Sheila's answer was devastating. He was waiting. He didn't want to accuse without proof. He wanted evidence, names, dates, contracts. He was gathering it. But the week before, he was supposed to meet with an investigative team. She paused. He died. That silence, nearly a decade long, suddenly took on new weight. The courtroom seemed frozen in place. Sheila E. ended this part of her testimony with one of Prince's last prophetic quotes. "What they do in the dark comes out in the music. Listen closely, and you'll hear the pain." She turned to the jury and added quietly, "Now you're hearing it in court." By the time court reconvened after a brief recess, the energy in the room had shifted. Sheila E.'s testimony had already shaken the courtroom. Her words lingered like smoke after a fire. But now, It was time for the defense to respond. And they came armed, not with compassion, but with strategy. Diddy's lead attorney, an aggressive litigator known for dismantling celebrity witnesses, rose slowly, adjusting his cuffs with surgical precision. His tactic? Undermine Sheila's credibility, cast doubt on her motives, and fracture the emotional spell she had cast over the jury. "Miss Escovedo," he began, referring to her by her full name, "isn't it true that for nearly 5 years you and Prince were estranged?" He referenced a well-known rift, a disagreement over Sheila's memoir, which Prince had allegedly felt betrayed private moments between them. It was a calculated strike, aimed at discrediting her emotional connection. Sheila didn't flinch. "We disagreed," she said firmly, "about tone, not truth. But we reconnected in 2015. I have phone records, flight manifests, and handwritten notes. Prince asked me to stand for him, not stay silent." The prosecution quickly moved to enter those documents into evidence, neutralizing the attack. The defense pivoted. "Isn't it true," the attorney continued, "that Prince's estate remains unsettled? That your visibility in this trial could influence your position as a potential beneficiary?" Gasps murmured through the gallery. Sheila's face turned solemn, but her eyes didn't waver. "I'm not here for an inheritance," she said. "In fact, this testimony has cost me fans, gigs, industry respect. I'm here because Prince asked me to protect the truth, even if it was ugly." Unshaken, the defense lawyer pressed on, now digging for inconsistencies. "You testified about surveillance, tapes, and coercive NDAs. But did you personally see any of it? Did you witness Diddy filming blackmail? Did Prince show you contracts?" "No," Sheila admitted. "I didn't see the tapes. I didn't see the contracts. But Prince told me they existed, and exactly where to look." She turned slightly toward the jury. "If you want the paperwork," she said pointedly, "ask the label archives. Prince mapped it all out." That moment opened the door, and prosecutors stepped through it with a vengeance. After lunch, they launched what legal commentators would later call an evidentiary blitz, an orchestrated release of bombshell documents that had been kept sealed. And it all began with a single envelope. A sealed package from Prince's personal attorney was opened in camera and then summarized for the jury. Inside, photocopies of 3 non-disclosure agreements. One, signed by a female vocalist, described a coerced performance at a private 2010 party in the Hamptons linked to Diddy's team. Another, signed by a male session guitarist, referenced compromising footage taken in a Miami penthouse. The third, unsigned but fully drafted, outlined hush-money terms for a rising rapper who allegedly declined special appearance offers at label events. According to the attorney's attached cover letter, Prince had received these documents from a whistleblower at a major record label. He had kept them in a private file, separate from his legal team's standard archives. Then came the next piece of evidence, a never-before-heard audio file recovered from a Paisley Park backup drive. In it, Prince rehearsed an interview that was never aired. In his own voice, he says, "They'll call it networking, but it's harvesting. Young artists go in thinking it's a party. They leave owing a debt, measured in silence." Jurors leaned in, captivated by the familiar cadence, the same prophetic tone Sheila had described. But prosecutors weren't done. A financial analyst took the stand to testify about a money trail that Prince's team had uncovered. Shell companies, disguised payments, security firms staffed with ex-military personnel, hired not for protection but for privacy. These firms were allegedly contracted to oversee private events on the same dates Cassie listed in her testimony. Invoices for venue lighting and VIP liaison matched the same coded language Cassie said was used to conceal escort services and coercion. And then came the final blow of the day: hotel keycard metadata. Records from a luxury hotel chain showed that Prince's digital keycard had been remotely reissued at exactly 3:07 a.m., the night before his emergency plane landing. Sheila had testified that around that same hour, Prince had called her in a panic, whispering, "They're outside my door." The metadata supported her claim. Someone had digitally tampered with his hotel access. The implication was clear. Prince was being watched. As the prosecutor concluded the evidence dump, he paused before displaying one last image. A scanned note, written in Prince's unmistakable handwriting, "Your silence won't protect you." It remained on the projection screen as the judge adjourned court for the day. A warning, a message, a haunting echo from beyond the grave. In the overflow room, legal analysts were already calling it unprecedented. We might be witnessing the first posthumous whistleblower in American legal history. One analyst whispered on a live stream. By the close of that day's proceedings, the courtroom wasn't just tense, it was transformed. What began as a celebrity trial had now become something far more consequential. Sheila E's testimony, combined with the evidence prosecutors had unleashed, had not only implicated Sean Diddy, Combs in a culture of silence and exploitation, it had also given Prince, nearly a decade after his death, a powerful voice in court. The image left lingering in the courtroom as the jury was dismissed was simple, yet searing. A scanned copy of Prince's handwritten note to Sheila E, projected onto a screen for all to see. It read, "Your silence won't protect you." It hovered in the air, stark against the courtroom lights, as though he were speaking directly to the jury from beyond the grave. Outside that courtroom, the impact was immediate. News of Sheila's testimony and the evidence presented traveled faster than any official statement. Social media erupted. Hashtags calling attention to Prince's warnings, to alleged industry cover-ups, and to artists' coerced silence trended globally. Within hours, the public narrative had shifted. This was no longer just about Diddy. It was about a broader system, one that Prince had spent years trying to expose, one that many were now seeing in a new light. Behind closed doors, the industry was panicking. Two senior executives at Bad Boy Records reportedly went on indefinite leave just hours after the hotel keycard evidence was revealed. A major label instructed its legal teams to begin preserving all internal communications related to artist contracts and private event planning. A prominent streaming platform convened an emergency review of archival performance footage, fearing it may contain material tied to ongoing investigations. Inside the courtroom, the psychological pressure had become visible. For the first time, Diddy appeared shaken. He kept his eyes downcast, focused on the grain of the defense table in front of him, and refused to acknowledge the jury or the public gallery. When his attorneys leaned in to whisper, he gave no reaction. His mother and daughters left quietly, concealed beneath umbrellas, their faces hidden from the cameras. They gave no comment. There was no performance, no control of the narrative. Sheila E. did not exit through the main courthouse door. Due to growing concerns over online threats, she was escorted out a side exit under federal protection. Later that evening, she issued a brief but pointed public statement. "I did what he asked. I protected the truth." Privately, those close to her said her phone had not stopped ringing. Musicians called to thank her. Executives called to distance themselves. Former colleagues called to warn her. And fans sent messages not just of support, but of fear. Because in her voice, they had heard something rare. Not rumor, not speculation, but the voice of someone who had witnessed history being buried and was now digging it up. And hovering over all of it was the memory of Prince. His legacy no longer confined to platinum records or his symbolic rebellion against the industry. Now, he had become something else. A warning, a prophet, perhaps even a posthumous whistleblower. A court sketch artist, a veteran of dozens of high-profile federal cases, was overheard telling a reporter outside the courthouse, "I've drawn fraudsters, I've drawn mobsters, but I've never drawn a ghost testifying." Today, Prince did. Whatever verdict the jury reaches, one thing is already clear. The silence that once protected this industry, the silence Prince spoke of, the silence Sheila E. risked everything to break, has shattered. This trial began with a single accusation. Now it has become a mirror held up to an industry that has long refused to face its own reflection. Sheila E.'s testimony was not just a tribute to a friend. It was a reckoning, a reminder that truth doesn't die when a person does. And a warning that even the most powerful systems cannot bury a story forever. Prince tried to speak out. The industry didn't listen. But now, through the echo of his words, through the bravery of someone he trusted, the silence is broken. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you or made you think differently about the music you hear and the power behind it, share it. Because some truths don't just need to be heard. They need to be remembered.